Kathleen Silva is she's the new Marion County Emergency Management Team, and it's called CERT. And I never knew the difference between CERT and in Portland there's also a CERT. And I thought, they don't sound alike. And I heard Kathleen talk about her CERT, and I have my granddaughter's husband is a SWAT team person for the Portland Fire Department, or for the Portland Police Department. And come to find out, they are referred to now as CERT instead of SWAT, because it's politically correct to be CERT. It doesn't sound quite as aggressive and hard-nosed as SWAT. So that's the weird PC thing in Portland. Last week, my granddaughter sent me a text just about a week ago in the evening, and she's on a traveling nurse program, and she was down in Central California, and she knew there was going to be a blackout, an electrical blackout. So that evening, she sent a text to me. I can't make my coffee. I can't make any tea. It looks like I might be out of work for the next 5 days. The gas stations don't have enough electricity for pumping gas, and I don't have any gas in my car, so I guess I'm stuck. So that reminded me of this presentation that Kathleen is going to make in regards to emergency management preparedness. And rather than tell you her credentials, she's going to kind of work that into her presentation. So please welcome Kathleen Silva.
Hi, my name is Kathleen Silva. I am not a native Oregonian. I am actually from originally California, but I have lived in several places in the United States, Nebraska, Hawaii, and now here, where I do call home. And I come from a background in taking criminal justice classes at California State University, Sacramento, to work on my bachelor's to do something with criminal justice. And while I was doing that, I was introduced to CERT, Community Emergency Response Team. And I'll go into that more in my presentation, but that is what started my career in emergency management. I loved it. And so then I finished my bachelor's and I transferred over to working on my master's in emergency management and continued on and ended up getting a position with Nebraska Emergency Management and worked there for about a year or about a year and a half for the state emergency management. And then I moved here to Oregon and started working for Marion County Emergency Management. And I was the emergency planner. And I learned a lot about Oregon. I learned a lot about Marion County. And I left for a short while, went and worked at Chemeketa Community College for their risk and emergency management program. And then the position came open here at Marion County for the emergency manager. And so now I'm back. I love Marion County. I think we are a very prepared county, but we can do better. And so I'm excited to present to you today. And we're going to talk about emergency preparedness and the different things that you can do to become more involved and more prepared. So Marion County Emergency Management, we are a program under Public Works, and we are a program that operate with four. I have two program coordinators, Krista and Eric, and then I have an emergency preparedness coordinator that was my previous position who's working on our emergency plans, and his name is Mike. And this is the building we work out of. We're off of Silverton Road, so we're out in the county. So we can't do it alone. The government can never do it alone. And we rely a lot on our volunteers. We rely a lot on our partners. and people in the community to help in our preparedness. So we have roughly about 250 active volunteers that work with us in our various programs, and we are always looking to recruit. So down here at the stage, after I'm done, there's a couple papers on ways that you can volunteer with us, and then you can also pick up a communications plan that was provided by Oregon Emergency Management and their 2-week Ready campaigns. So our mission is to look at prevention, protection, mitigation, response, and recovery. So we are an all-hazard program, and it's from that preparedness to during to after the disaster that we focus on. So Marion County, we have 20 cities. There's 37 unincorporated parts of the community. We have 3 hospitals, the sheriff's office, our police stations. All of these partners, all these stakeholders are people that work with us. They are what makes our community a community. And so this is just to kind of paint a picture as to the vast amount of responsibility that we have in our program. And we work with all of these partners to be able to do what we do. So out of my 4-person team, and I consider us a team because we all work together, we each have a region that we take on, and we are liaisons. So I am the Kaiser and Salem area, and then Krista is up at the North County. We have Eric through the middle of the county, and then Mike would work pretty much the Canyon area. And so if you ever have any questions, concerns, planning needs, that's how we're able to assist all of the county, is to break up and have a liaison for each one of our cities. And then, of course, I take care of the unincorporated part of the county. So any of like Maclay and any of the other unincorporated parts of the county, you can reach out to me. And I would like to learn more about those communities because that's something that we really could focus on as a future goal. And so you can reach out to me if you'd like. So this is our demographic as of 2018, and I'm sure it's going to change with the new census that's coming out. But this is just, again, to give you some perspective as to what it is that we are working towards when we're doing a whole community approach. We're an all-hazard program, so that means that we are looking at natural hazards, technological, and human-caused. And we have all of those types of disasters that we could face here in Marion County. And these are just some of the things that we have responded to. Not us personally, but the types of fires. So fires, earthquakes, train derailments, things of that nature. So we work on a THIRA, which is a Threat Hazard Identification Risk Assessment. And this is what we concluded from a 2016 THIRA that we ran. And this was a whole community approach. We worked with the public sector, private sector, nonprofits, and our faith-based communities to look at the different types of hazards that we could face here in Marion County. And then we used a methodology that could rate those disasters and threats. And so this is basically what the methodology pointed to, is that we have a high risk for catastrophic, and it would have, it would be something that it doesn't happen very often, but the magnitude, if Cascadia were to happen or when it happens, would be catastrophic. And so with the methodology, they're looking at frequency, they're looking at how catastrophic it would be, do you have warning time? So there's different elements that go into how they develop where it would fall in the spectrum. So catastrophic, critical, or limited. And so even though we don't have tornadoes here very often, we have had them in Marion County, and so we do want to look at history. We want to look at what has transpired as well. And so this is the list of hazards and threats that we prepare for here at Marion County. So one of the reasons that I'm here today is to talk to you about preparedness, individual preparedness, family preparedness. And so one of the resources that you can go to assist in your planning is ready.gov. And they're going to be able to provide you with material to be informed, make a plan, build a kit, and to get involved. So this is just one resource that I'll point to today about how you can get material and outreach on how to become more prepared. So you might want to identify the hazards that you would face, and I would look at your area of where you live and see what hazards that you would like to prepare for. So is it flood? Is it fire? Is it that, you live next to a train? Just kind of do an assessment as to where it is that you live, or where you go to for church or to go to school, and just look and have some situational awareness as to things that you would want to prepare for, and to write a plan based upon what kind of hazard you could face. So once you write a plan, you're going to want to practice it. And this is something that our kids do all the time when they go to school. They do fire drills, they do the lockout, they do the earthquake drills now. We just had the earthquake drill today. How many of you guys participated in that at 1017? No? Nobody got underneath their desk and drop covered and hold on? All right, we have one in the back. We did that today at Public Works as well, so we did the drop cover hold drill. So we have plans, but they're only as good as if we practice them and train on them to know what it is that we need to do better. And that's how we get our lessons learned and best practices, is from being able to practice our plans. So practice. Once you make a plan, evacuate your home. Find out where it is that you're going to go and start to have those conversations. Is it that you're going to go to the end of the driveway and, make sure everybody gets there and then decide what you're going to do? Is it that you're going to go to a neighbor's house? But just start to have those conversations with the people that you live with so that they know what the plan is. You can also identify secondary locations as to where it is that you could meet. Let's say you have a flooding event and one of the persons are at home and one's at work or at the grocery store. You can't get back to your home. Is there a secondary location that you would plan for that you guys could meet? And having that communication ahead of time is definitely something that you can include in your plan. And then having some situational awareness by having a radio that you could listen to the different types of alerts and warnings that are going to go out, and having that programmed in your car, or having a NOAA radio to where you could hear any kind of alerts and warnings that come across that way if you're at your house. So the Red Cross also has a lot of information about how to plan, and talks about that family preparedness. And a family plan is not just for you, it could be for your pets as well. And so there's a lot of information out there that talks about all your members of your family. So you could go to the American Red Cross's website and get information. Once there is a disaster, Facebook is another way that you can receive information, or you can notify family that you are okay. They have a safety check that they turn on once the disasters transpired. They use this a lot in the hurricanes that they have along the Gulf, that they can show their family that they're okay by checking in. The Red Cross also has something very similar, and it's called I'm Safe. So those are other resources that you can go to as well. So again, you want to have a plan, you want to have an evacuation plan, you want to know 2 ways in, 2 ways out. You want to have a meeting place that you've identified, and to share that and to practice it. And then talk about this with your neighbors too, because it's important that we rely upon our community and get to know our community. And it will lessen anxiety if there's a plan in place for you. And so there's also a program called Map Your Neighborhood. Has anybody heard of Map Your Neighborhood? Great. Are you a member of that program? Do you use it?
We're working on it.
Okay.
I'm part of our neighborhood watch community preparedness.
Excellent. So that's a program that started out of Washington State that we've adopted here in Oregon, where you can work with your community to become more prepared, have more situational awareness, identify your resources, and be able to communicate during time of a disaster if you're okay or if you are needing help. And so these are all programs that we can bring to different community organizations and present on that, but it's called Map Your Neighborhood. And it's a good way to start to have those conversations with your community. The workplace, you should also have a way to evacuate if you are at work, and just identify where you could go potentially. And one of the things we teach when we're working on evacuation plans for a workplace is that you might not necessarily get back into that building. And so we ask that you bring your keys if you can, or personal belongings, just in case you can't get back in, and that way you can leave the premises if you're not going to be able to report back. So when you're volunteering or doing those kinds of activities in a facility, just remember that that would be a good practice, is to keep your personal belongings with you if you can, so that if that establishment were to evacuate, that you would be able to leave the premises. And I talk a lot about children. Know what the plan is for the schools, and know what it is that they are going to do in the event that they have to evacuate, and have a communications plan with your child as to how you're going to communicate in times of disaster. And with grandchildren as well, I have a place for my child where he is to report to in the event of a disaster that's really close to his school. And I also provide them lots of contact information for him to be picked up, so that if I can't get there, somebody else can. So I list multiple people on his emergency card. Grandparents, of course, they're a huge help. His great aunt and uncle are big supporters. So just being able to have an emergency card and having those discussions with family about being able to pick up your child, because they can't dismiss them unless they have somebody that's on the emergency card. So if you could talk to grandchildren, children, and their parents about how it is that you can communicate that plan, and then ask where the reunification site would be for that school. What is their plan? Where is it that they would go, so that you can have that information. So again, it's a whole community approach. We really encourage people to work together to get to know your neighbors. And this is really hard. Just times have changed. I can remember growing up that you knew everybody on the block. You knew everybody 2 blocks over. Everybody would do block parties and things like that, or even attend events together because you grew up with the kids and everything like that. So everybody knew each other. But we're so diverse now, and we all have so many things going on that a lot of us don't know our neighbors. We don't know if we have a nurse next door, or a plumber, or an electrician, or a doctor, or, just people who are very resourceful. They have a skill set and can work together in a time of an emergency. And so it's just really important that we get out there and we start to talk to our neighbors so that we can work together in the event of a disaster. And people like to have tools, they like to have equipment, they like to have toys. And so learning if somebody has a generator or a chainsaw, or they have, means to cut limbs from trees or unclog drains. It's just really important to understand what it is that they could provide in the event of a disaster. And then with the Map Your Neighborhood, they have the OK or help, and that's really geared towards people who are medically fragile or vulnerable populations, our senior citizens, people who might need some assistance in the event that there is a disaster. And so they can put a help label in their window, and then that is a way for the community to know that they're needing some extra assistance. And after you start to go out and you're meeting with people, you can learn about things that will impede them. Do you have a single mom? Do you have, children that are home at night because somebody's working a night shift? You can just understand work schedules and understand what the community in your area is facing during a time of disaster and who might need some extra assistance. And so to communicate in advance and just to build that network and to build that community so that you guys could rely upon each other. So again, it's called Map Your Neighborhood. It's a 9-step response plan that can help you to ask those questions of your neighbors and to build that capacity and capability within your community. And if you, again, would like us to come and deliver this to your community, then let us know. You usually would work with about 10 homes, so 5 on either side. If you're on a street, we recommend that you go across the street versus down the road. So working in small communities, not trying to take on a big chunk, but really trying to focus within your immediate vicinity. And then, for apartments, maybe it's a floor gets together so that, you're not having a vast area. You're getting to know your direct neighbors that could be able to assist you. So when we look at disasters, we look at the critical infrastructure, the lifelines, as we call them. And communications, water, transportation, and energy are really important in planning. And so energy is really looking at utility, and it's also looking at our fuel sources. But to really just identify what those dependencies and interdependencies are on one another. So we did a hazard mitigation plan for Marion County, and this is one of the elements that we looked at when we were developing that plan. And so we got with our partners and we started to have these conversations with our stakeholders that represented these lifelines, and we learned a lot. Oftentimes our bridges have things co-located. So we'll have water attached to them, we'll have fiber optic cables, things like that, plus it's a transportation element. Sometimes there is a bridge and it's also transporting water underneath or other cablings. We have towers that are serving communication needs, but for when a power goes out, they need to have fuel. You need to be able to have the road to get there, to get that up and running. So there's a lot of interdependencies and dependencies on one another. And so just really identifying what those needs are so that we can get back up and running is really important. People who are on a well, do you have a backup generator that you would be able to get water out of the ground if there was no power? So just trying to understand your environment and how it can impact you in a disaster is really important. And then we talk about the medically fragile, people who are taking medications daily, sometimes life safety medications, and do you have enough on hand to get you through if you are not able to get your medications refilled? So starting to talk with your doctors and having conversations about being able to get maybe a 90-day prescription, or sometimes if you're going on vacation, asking for an extra prescription to be able to offset that vacation time. Just starting to have those conversations with your doctors, and I know it's sometimes difficult with the insurance carriers that it doesn't get covered, but just start to have those questions and start to ask the pharmacies and the insurance and your doctors how you can better prepare for having medication on hand. And keep the prescription label in your wallet, in your purse, so that if you're not writing it down, keep the form that you get from the pharmacy that's telling you what you're taking, how often you're taking it, the dose, so that if something were to happen, somebody would know that you are taking a medication and this is what you're on. And I know that this has often come up with senior citizens, that when an EMS would arrive at your home because you've called for 911, that's one of the things that the medics are going to ask you is, what is it that you're taking? And, if you don't know, it can really complicate things as to how they're going to treat you. So just having that available in your home, in your car, so that you can be able to provide that information if it was asked. And to include your pets. Sometimes your pets are on medication. Sometimes they have needs that go above and beyond what the everyday person would need. So being able to plan for your pets as well. So this here is a photo of what I have in my car. I actually did a Facebook Live a couple weeks back for September's National Preparedness Month. And so we went through my car and I was challenging people to get out there and build a kit. It doesn't have to be everything right now. I didn't get to this point right away. It took years, and I'm still building, because every single one of the checklists that I look at are different. And I can get a different idea from looking at different resources and talking with people and hearing what they have in their kit and how they would use it. And so it's just really important to look at various resources to build your kit, because you're going to build it to your needs. I know for me, I have a lot because I have a child. I also have a pet, so I have a preparedness kit in there for him as well. We go to the coast, we go sit by the ocean, and we're prepared. And I take a lot of time in my travels and things like that, and I'm prepared. So when my kid throws up in the car, I've got the resources. He's got extra clothes, he's got the wipes to wipe him down, he's got a towel to lay in the seat. We've had where we just moved into a house and we didn't have everything out of boxes yet. I went out to my car and got my can opener. So just having those resources available to you, because you've planned, you've experienced something that has just triggered you to go, oh, I wish I would have had that. Having a sewing kit in your car, just things that will come up in everyday life, and then you're just like, oh, if I would have had that, it would have made things so much easier. But definitely food and water, snacks, those are all things that are really important. Change of clothes, and looking at the different types of weather that, we can go from one extreme to another, especially during the changing of the seasons. We can be where we're wearing shorts one day and a sweater or something the next. So having that variation is also important. But this is my car kit, and so I try to share the message with people that I'm in emergency management, and I am somebody who practices what I preach. So I do have a kit at work, and then I also have my kit at home. So I just strongly encourage you to start small. Buy food at the store a little bit extra every day, or every time you go to the store. So you want your non-perishables, buy an extra can of soup, buy an extra can of beans, but buy what you're gonna eat. You don't wanna be on your bad day, an emergency strike, and you're eating something that you wouldn't normally eat. So my recommendation is to just put it into the rotation of what you actually buy and eat on a regular basis. Because that's another thing you don't want to do in an emergency, is change your diet. Because that can really mess up your system sometimes. So try to just prepare where you're just cycling through your stuff. So some other things that you can put into your go bag, emergency kit, whatever you want to call it, is a means to be able to communicate, and the battery or something that can be used to charge the device. Cash is important, especially when we lose power for long periods of time. ATMs, things like that, if they're not backed up, won't work, and so you won't be able to get cash out. And then in small denominations, so like 5s, 10s, 1s, so that you're not necessarily having to give somebody $20 for a roll of toilet paper. Which I carry a lot of toilet paper in my car because I hear that in times of disaster, that's like the #1 thing that people are really wanting, water and toilet paper. So I've got myself covered there. Blankets, shoes, especially like in workplaces or wherever you volunteer, if you're not wearing comfortable shoes, I strongly encourage having like an extra pair of tennis shoes around because you don't want to be wearing really nice, shoes or toe shoes or sandals and not have proper shoes for your feet. Oregon, we love to camp. We love to have that outdoorsy, type of equipment and supplies. So some of the stuff you might already have, and maybe it's just that you're going to strategically place them to where you can access them in an emergency. An outside shed, a closet by the front door, a closet or outside in the garage that's near the actual garage door and not the vehicle door, because that could collapse. You might not be able to get out through that, but the door in and out of a garage is typically stronger depending on the type of situation that you're in. So just strategically placing your supplies and equipment. For kids, having extra things on hand, definitely taking a look at your pets and making sure that you have a food supply for them and a water supply for them as well. I have different ways of storing my supplies. It's different from what I have at home, in my car, and at work. I travel a lot with things on wheels because that's easy. So I have kits that I can do on wheels. I have a backpack, I can take things and go. I have totes where I can carry something. So it just really depends on my situation and what I'm storing it in. But make it easy. And duct tape is your best friend. It can be used for a lot of things, but just those are some of the things. I like to talk a lot about documents and having that available. And nowadays, you can store it to the cloud if you're comfortable with doing that with sensitive information. You can put it on a USB drive. You can have physical copies that you've mailed to somebody that's out of the area, so out of state. And we're looking, that you have insurance documentation. Who's your policy with? What is your declaration page? Marriage licenses, death certificates, wills, all the phone numbers and things like that to all your credit card companies, your mortgage, but just those important documents that you can be able to get the information in the time of emergency and start the process of being able to get into that recovery. And sometimes the safe in the house isn't the best place, or a safety deposit box at the bank, because you don't know if you're going to have access to it. So just depending on your situation and everything, but those are just some of the ideas to start to think about, is where to store that documentation and have it available if you need it. Some other things, just for a first aid kit, definitely make sure that things are sterile. So if they are packaged, keep them packaged. Keep things in Ziploc containers so that they are, protected from getting wet, getting any kind of other bodily fluid on them, so that they're staying sterile. It's important to make sure, again, that you have your medications. So these are just some ideas for you to put into a first aid kit. So during a major disaster, sometimes you won't have the means to use credit cards and things like that. So this is, again, going back to our list where we were talking about having cash on hand. Sometimes you might trade that toilet paper I was talking about. That's a really good commodity. Or water. So you might swap and trade things with neighbors depending on what you have. And maybe that's something that you work out with your neighbors is, hey, you get this supply, I'll get this supply, and we'll share. Storing things under your couch, storing things under beds, storing things in closets. But they're outside sheds, just depending on, what your circumstances are, where it is that you live, how much space that you have, are different ways that you can store items. But start to put things aside. What's important to you? So in my kit, I have chocolate. Because, in a stressful situation, you would want to buy down some of that anxiety and stress, and so I like chocolate. So that's something that I keep with me. Some people like to read. Some people like to have a stress ball. Some people like to do crossword puzzles. Find what it is that's important to you and put that into your kit, because on your bad day, that is something that will make things be a little bit less stressful for you. Sentimental things, pictures, things like that. If they're not hanging up, maybe putting them in something that is watertight, or putting them up higher in a closet. But just trying to plan for the different types of hazards. Maybe it's putting it in a fire-safe safe and putting it up on a shelf. But look at what is sentimental to you and how you can store it to keep it safe from disasters. And do you have a place for your pet to go? Maybe you can't take them in every situation, but do you have a backup of where it is that you can take them in case you're not able to take them to an evacuation center? So just starting to have some of those conversations as to what you would do. So it's important that after a disaster that you consult with your insurance company and know your policy. There's a lot of verbiage that is in an insurance policy, and a lot of the times the different carriers have different clauses. In some insurance policies it says that if you're in a flood event and there hasn't been a flood in your area with a 1 mile radius, it's not considered a flood. So your house isn't covered. Sometimes they say, okay, if you're in a disaster and you didn't have the insurance 30 days prior, you're not covered. So just understanding what it is that your coverage is and what it is that you're wanting to insure. And renter's insurance. There are some programs that if you don't have insurance at all, you're ineligible for programs because you didn't carry insurance. So just understanding how to cover yourself and what's available to you is really important to start to have some of those conversations. So at Marion County Emergency Management across the state, really, everybody's planning for the Cascadia earthquake. How many of you guys have heard of the Cascadia earthquake? Woohoo, lots of hands, great. How many of you guys are prepared? Just a little bit, just have started to prepare. Good for you, good for you. So maybe you should challenge some of your classmates to start getting some plans in place and building some kits. So this information here is coming from the Oregon Resiliency Plan from 2013, where they did a deep dive and they were trying to understand our critical infrastructure, what it is that the impact would be to our community. And so these are estimates as to what they're saying as far as our utilities. That electricity in the valley, 1 to 3 months. Fire and police stations, 2 to 4 months. So just trying to think about that, relying on your neighbor, to being prepared. The government cannot do it alone. We need everybody to work together. We need everybody to be prepared. And outside assistance from the federal government, like FEMA and the other national agencies that get called upon to help FEMA, they're saying that they won't be able to come for 3 weeks. So that means we really need to start to prepare. Oregon has adopted the 2-week ready. How many of you guys have heard of the two-week ready campaign? Yep. So that's because the outside assistance during a Cascadia earthquake is going to take time. And so we're really asking that the communities start working together and start building some of the resiliency together. And the reason we want you to stay at home, at work, you know, and in your car is because you don't know where you're going to be. So having those resources available to you is really important. We really are not looking here in Marion County to do tent cities. We don't have a facility big to, you know, start housing people. What we're really asking is for people to camp. Go to your home, go to your communities in your yard and work with your neighbors on building that community network. Pitch a tent in the front yard. A lot of the people are not going to want to get back into their homes because of the aftershocks or because of the damage, and they just don't know if it's able to withstand the aftershocks and is a safe place. So that's what we're really trying to educate and train people on, is to be able to get you back home and then to have resources that would be available throughout the county and the various cities. And that way you could just go get resources and then come back home. So that's really our strategy. So how can you become involved? How can you get trained? And these are some of the options that you have. We have a community emergency response team. Most of our cities here in Marion County have one. And so we'll go into the training here in a minute, but the amateur radio, how many of you guys have your ham radio license? I think there's a gap. So if you go to the City of Salem's website, or you go to Marion County's website, maybe you don't even live in Marion County, maybe you live in one of our surrounding communities, but you could go to the emergency management's websites and start to look for where you can get that kind of training, because you can get your ham radio license, and there are trainings offered throughout the year at various locations. So I highly recommend that. And then the Medical Reserve Corps. So people who have a background in medical, and sometimes people who don't, they could find a way to fit into that program as well. But we activate our different volunteers, not only during disasters, but they help us to support events that are happening in the community. So the latest one we did is at Oktoberfest, and we had all of these teams here, and they helped support that community event by doing checks on, you know, the population, setting up the first aid tent, having communication so that people could have situational awareness throughout the event. So it's really something that's positive. It's a team effort, and you get trained. So you can learn how to extinguish a fire. These are some of the assets that we have for our Medical Reserve Corps. So the tents would be used to do triage. The trailer there has supplies, medical supplies and first aid supplies to be able to use. And then we have our emergency management vehicle to tow and transport our assets. This is our gator. And we use this a lot during events because we do that crowd monitoring, just making sure that people are okay. We have a lot of responses during events for heat, or people sometimes have struggled with their diabetes and keeping it under control, and they have some kind of a medical emergency. We have bee stings, people slip and fall. So we use our gator to kind of circle around and make sure that people are okay, and if they're not, we can call it in and people can get assistance. And then that's a photo where we have done some triage at events. So the Community Emergency Response Team is a 24-hour hands-on course. The part that I like is they teach you how to, put out a fire. They teach you how to turn off your gas. Never turn back on your gas, ever. That is always supposed to be done by the utility company. You can turn it off, but never turn it back on. They will show you how to turn off your electrical panel, your breakers, and they bring those devices in, and you're getting that hands-on of what it looks like, the tools that you need to shut things off, your water, your gas. And so it's really that hands-on experience. These are all of our CERT teams that we have, and so if you are interested in joining, you can go to our website for Marion County Emergency Management, and you can go to the CERT website, and it will show you a link that has all of this information there. I can also share this PowerPoint, and then it can get emailed and shared if you guys would like. But these are contacts for the different CERT teams. And then Eric Anderson is our program coordinator that's in charge of our volunteers. So not everybody lives in Marion County. We have some that are in Polk if they live in West Salem. And if you are down in Albany, Corvallis, you might be in Lynn. So I just provided emergency contact information for the various emergency management programs so that you could reach out to them if you live in one of those areas. We have our Marion County Emergency Management Program is on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We do messaging, alerting, information, training opportunities, but we use those platforms to be able to communicate with the community in disasters, but we also use it to do the outreach, preparedness, and education. So we just did a big campaign for the September Preparedness Month, and so Krista in our office was posting almost every single day just how to build a kit, things to take into consideration, and she keeps all those sites up to date, so you can check those out. Again, this is my team, and if you wanted to reach out to one of us, this is our contact information. We're here, this is what we do. We do outreach, we do education and training. So if there's a group, a church, a volunteer, program that you're with and you want us to come and present, just let us know and we can do that. Now I'm going to open it up for questions. And I will say that if I don't have the answer, I will get it for you. So I'll be just emailing back to the rep here what the answer would be if I don't have it. Yes. Thank you.
Okay, we do have a few minutes for questions, so anybody has a question?
Hi there.
Thank you.
So I've done the CERT training, and I was at a large meeting with a Red Cross representative, and I live in West Salem, and I've got all the preparations there, but I live my life here, across the bridge. And so I asked, what are the provisions for getting us back across? And there was no answer.
We are working on that. I keep pitching everywhere I go that I really wish that somebody would build a zip line across the Willamette River. We could use it in good times and we can use it in our bad times. I know that it's something that we are, talking about. We just don't have the answer at the moment. But we are working on it. It is a concern. We have innovative ways that we can, do things like a zip line or a boat or, different things. So it is a question we do get often.
Hi, my name is Joan. I've heard that you can't store water for forever, and I'd like to know why. Does it turn poison? And how often should you throw out what you've saved and replenish it, like bottled water?
The recommendation that we've been told is that you should recycle your water bottles, for example, every 6 months, and not to take them from extreme temperatures from hot and cold. And depending on what kind of plastic that they're in, depending on the temperature change, it can release a chemical into the water. That's what we have been told as to why, is that you want to go by the expiration date that's on the water bottles. That's not the only way you can store water. There are aluminum cans that you can store water in. There's the plastic pouches that you can purchase for single use. So there's different ways. And so I don't store water in one way. I have the 5-gallon waters at my house. I have a life straw or some kind of a water purification. I do have the aluminum can. I do have the water pouches. And so I mix it up depending on where I'm at, where it is that I'm storing stuff. If I'm storing stuff in my car, I want it to be something I can tuck away, so it's the pouches. I do have a couple of the cans, but you do just want to recycle it like you're using it. So when I use my 5-gallon water, I have more on hand. So I don't go through 7 of those containers in a month or every 2 weeks, but I do have water that's constantly coming in. So I just rotate it into my life.
Hi, this is Ann. We used to live in Seaside, and we had many drills and lots of concentration on preparation. And I'm on notification through my email about drills and things. So I knew about the shakeout, which was supposed to be an Oregon one, and I talked to some people here about it, and nobody had heard of it at all, of the people that I talked to. So I wondered, are there plans for more drills in Marion County and getting like to the university and to workplaces and so on?
So we work with the communities a lot about exercise and training. We, as a program, we exercise every quarter in a different way. Sometimes it's doing a tabletop discussion. Sometimes we activate our emergency operations center. More community things, we participate with schools when they do drills, the college. We're actually doing one here tomorrow that's a tabletop exercise. So depending on the organization, there's exercises that do take place. To answer your question about the Oregon Great Shakeout, organizations registered to do that, so everybody kind of did it independently. It wasn't something where there was a national or a local alert or message that went out that said, we're doing a drill. But you may have experienced that FEMA had done a alert and warning a couple months back where they were testing the alert notifications, and that was something that was a little bit more organized nationally. But if you are looking to do an exercise with an organization, we can help in that planning effort to do that. There's also resources online where you can build your own exercise in. With our volunteer organizations, we do exercises as well. So it just really depends upon what kind of organization that you're a part of and what the needs are of the community. And if there's something that you would like us to participate in, then let us know and we'll do our best to be able to assist.
I think I want to follow up with this CERT thing. Portland CERT is special event. Portland CERT was special event emergency response. This CERT obviously is not that, it's community. At any rate, Catherine has some handouts up here, and if you'd like, you can come up here and pick some up, and I think we're through. Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you.